Good evening and welcome to this Friday night edition of Newsmax Prime. I'm J.D. Hayworth. Of prime interest tonight, crime and politics. Here's the way our parent website, Newsmax.com, reports the story. The headline says it all. Two former federal prosecutors, criminal charges likely in Clinton server probe. To say these are tumultuous times for Hillary Clinton would be an understatement. She's the focus of that criminal investigation. Her campaign is in trouble as her poll numbers are falling. So this morning on MSNBC's Morning Joe, she returned to that shop-worn refrain of the leftists. I'm doing this all for the children.
I think every kid should have a chance to live up to his or her God-given potential. And it's rooted in my decades of work. You know, this is not the first time I've ever talked about how we're going to make the country more successful for our kids. I've been doing that since I went to work for the Children's Defense Fund right out of law school and all the way through, you know, my time as Senator and Secretary of State. So I have a very clear North Star that I want to see realized, and it's what I'm going to be working hard every day to achieve.
For more on this story, we're pleased to be joined now via Skype from Connecticut by Newsmax TV political analyst and presidential strategist Dick Morris. Dick, of course, the co-author of the best-selling book Power Grab, Obama's Dangerous Plan for a One-Party Nation. Dick, it's so good to have you via Skype from Connecticut. Just last night you were here on the anchor desk post-debate, but we may be in this pre-indictment phase for Hillary Clinton, at least if these two former federal prosecutors are right. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think the most important thing is to realize that the issue as to whether or not she is indicted is more a political decision than a judicial one. The FBI will investigate it, is investigating it, and will come to a judgment as to whether she violated the law. Assuming that they decide that she did, then they refer it to the Justice Department, which has to decide whether or not to prosecute. And that decision will be made by Loretta Lynch, the United States Attorney General, who is, of course, a political appointee of President Obama. And now we go back to the political side of the equation. If Hillary is the commanding frontrunner in the polls and the all but certain Democratic nominee, they're probably not going to indict her because it would be to take the election away from the voters and have the Justice Department decide it. And certainly not to knock out a Democratic Party nominee is something this administration wouldn't do. But if she's mired in a tough contest, or if somebody else is ahead, or if there's a real sense that she's not able to carry it off and maybe you need another candidate like Joe Biden or someone in there to pick up the flag, then an indictment might be a very interesting way to get her out, and it might all be wrapped up then into a plea bargain. Get out of the race, turn your delegates over to Biden, and there'll be no indictment. Hillary would rather die than make that kind of a deal, but that may be a choice she has.
Well, let's move from that very intriguing scenario on the Democratic side back to last night's Republican debate. You'll recall, and we talked about it here on the anchor desk in our post-debate special, Ted Cruz, in response to Donald Trump, talked about New York values, but meant it in a negative context. Now, this morning's New York Daily News put out a cover in response, and it's pretty rough on Cruz. It says, "Drop dead, Ted." And it has the Statue of Liberty offering a one-finger salute, not saying, hey, Ted, you're number one. How bad is this for Cruz? Dick Morris, about a minute left.
Well, for those in the audience who weren't around in 1975 when it ran the headline about Gerald Ford, who turned down a bailout request from New York City, and the news ran the headline, Ford to New York, drop dead. Cruz is being very brilliant in raising that issue because there's been an ad running in Iowa saying that he says that Cruz says one thing in New York to liberal donors and another thing in Iowa. And by raising the issue of New York values, by which he means abortion and gay marriage, he's attacking Trump, but he's doing it in a way where the voters fill in their own version of it. What do they think is New York values? I think it'll be very effective in Iowa. I'm worried, though, that it will ghettoize Trump as a sort of evangelical Midwestern candidate, much like Huckabee and Santorum before him both of whom won Iowa, and that didn't have the legs to go anyplace else.
Dick, one more minute remains. I'd be remiss. We began with possible court appearance for Hillary Clinton. Here's some court action against Ted Cruz, a Texas lawyer filing a birther lawsuit challenging the Texas senator's citizenship status. Are there enough seeds of doubt planted where this could really harm the Cruz candidacy? About 40 seconds.
I think Cruz hit it out of the park last night, and I don't think that's going to matter. In fact, I think it'll have the opposite effect. I think the voters will say, leave it to the courts to sort out. If they hear something from them, it'll influence my vote. In the meantime, I'm going to vote for the guy who I think is right. I think that the lawsuit in many ways is helpful to Cruz because it delegates it to the judiciary, not to the electorate.
All right, fair enough. We will have to leave it right there. Dick Morris, tonight from Connecticut. We thank you for your time.
Thank you.